Mr. President, I do want to pay tribute to the Honourable Michael Egan AO and the contribution that he made to the Parliament and the Labor Party and the people of New South Wales, and also want to recognise the presence of his partner Byron, family, and of course former Senator Michael Forshaw, who was a close contemporary. I feel as though it would be remiss of me, notwithstanding the fact, Mr. President, that I only probably ever met Egan on a handful of occasions, having been brought up in the Shire for most of my formative years and cutting my political teeth down there, having twice been the candidate for Cook and a Sutherland Shire Council, you couldn't help but get inspiration from the Egan legacy, which, I mean, when you're running for political office down there, it's pretty tough going, right? I mean, it's been conservative territory, well, not always. I mean, we had obviously the Miranda phenomena and Cook in 72, 74 under Thorburn, and then of course the Collier success later on. But in that southern part of the Shire, that Cronulla Port Hacking strip, it's tough going for us. And you get this bloke, Egan, who runs for the seat, not once, not twice, 3 times, and on the 4th time gets there. That gives people coming up through the political ranks inspiration that if you work hard and connect with the community, you can get those results. And I think from my perspective, that was my first sort of awareness or consciousness of the Egan legacy, and it was, as I say, an inspiration to people like me and others in the area that you could actually get success if you worked hard. And the point that was made by the Honourable Mark Latham before about the subsequent success of Labor governments getting elected and the fact that there would be no Carr government without Egan, if I could draw another bow with the Minns government. In the last election, there was obviously the usual controversies about who should be our candidates in various seats, and there were people offering different views about who should run in the duty seats that I was responsible for, which were 2 of them were Heathcote and Camden, and there were 2 excellent candidates there, strong women who I knew were in the Egan mould, that is Sally Cornell down in Camden and Marianne Stewart in Heathcote. And I reminded people, because one of the arguments was that, well, you know, they've been around a few times, maybe we should try someone else. I reminded them of the Egan legacy and the importance of the party backing in people who have put in the hard yards and have connected with the community and got results for the party, and sticking with them for the name recognition and the rapport that they've built up with the community. And again, so I was able to use that Egan legacy in the arguments to advocate for those 2 candidates to get pre-selected. So there was that legacy as well, and in some ways you can thank Egan for the fact that we've now got a Minns Labor government in that respect. I also want to make mention of the fact that he played a role in the, there's a documentary called Democracy, which was directed, and what that's about, he was in that, he's mentioned in that. So it is, the Democracy is it's a documentary about the Cook pre-selection in 1984. So you remember Hawke got elected and then, you know, had the misstep of calling the election after 1 year, and we almost got done over. After the 83 election, where we got elected, Cook was the most marginal seat in the country, I think. Is that right, Mike? Yeah. So Addison had almost won. I think we got within 100 votes, actually sat on caucus. And then on the countback, they found out that we'd lost Cook. And then the subsequent pre-selection battle between Addison and McIlwain, Egan backed in Addison. And again, I can't help but thinking part of the motivation was, well, I ran for Cronulla for 3 times, the party backed me in and we won eventually. Why shouldn't Addison get another crack? We got as close as that, which is fair enough, and further to my previous point. And I highly recommend that if you want to know some of the culture of internal Labor Party politics and how things work and a bit of entertainment. Pull out the Democracy. If you haven't got a copy, I'm happy to provide you one. It's an entertaining evening's couple of hours if you want to watch that. But he did play a pivotal role in that, and in that particular case, McIlwain won the pre-selection and we lost Cook. Obviously, Michael also worked for Unsworth before he was made Premier, and as we've heard, became a member of the LC, where he served the people of New South Wales from incredibly lengthy career, 86 to 2005, almost 2 decades, and then, of course, Leader of the Opposition, Leader of the LC from 91 to 95, and then Treasurer in the Carr government. I won't repeat some of the plaudits that have been given to him, except to say this: Labor governments are inevitably held to a much higher, and I know those opposite won't like it, but it's true, a much higher economic standard than Conservative governments, because there is a view, rightly or wrongly, I say wrongly, that we're not as responsible as Conservatives with money. Every time you have a successful Treasurer like that beds down balanced or surplus budgets over a 10-year period, it seeps into the public consciousness that we can manage budgets well, and we do it in a way which progresses social justice. And I think that legacy, you cannot overestimate how important it is and has been to the success of the Carr government and subsequent Labor governments. I did see him for a while through the prism of the electricity privatisation debate, because at the time I was a delegate for, it was called Sydney County Council then, for the Electrical Trades Union. Bernie Reardon was the secretary of the party, and Michael will remember this debate well. And it was Egan who was the spearhead for selling off the electricity assets, which we obviously didn't agree with. But I remember particularly a debate where Egan was proffering the sale of the electricity assets. Instead of communicating via the media and trying to come in over the top of the party, what he did was convene a meeting at King's Cross, which Reardon fronted on behalf of all the delegates. I was there. I think it was about 200 delegates from all over New South Wales, and prosecuted the argument in front of the people that he was trying to convince, that is, the people who worked in the electricity industry. He obviously got a hiding at that particular delegates conference, but the fact that you would go out there and try and prosecute an argument for the people that you were trying to affect, I think speaks volumes for the character of the bloke. And then, of course, there was a special conference held where I think the union managed to get 200 signatures, and Egan, I think it was, who convinced Carr to hold off until that special conference so they could prosecute the argument at the special conference, which was ultimately lost on the floor of the ALP conference, as should happen in a democratic process based on the merits of the argument. So I just think it shows the character of a fellow who, at the time, that was and still is an extremely controversial view to have, to sell off states' electricity assets in a Labor government, but being prepared to go out and try and convince his party to do it, I think speaks volumes for the character. I will finish off just with some observations, like my colleague Sarah Kane, from people that I've spoken to, in particular. And at one stage I was a member of the Cronulla branch. I started at the Miranda branch and then moved to Cronulla when we moved down there, and obviously different era to Michael. But two of my long-term party colleagues down there, which will be known to Michael's family, friends, and of course Senator Forshaw, Chris and Mary Hunt, who remember Michael as being a very social and good-humoured person. Another local branch member, Tony Brownlow, described Michael as a powerful local campaigner with great political instinct and a particular talent for explaining complex policy in very simple terms which were understandable to everyone. That's not always an easy talent for a politician, to be able to distill complex policy and political matters into plain language, but he had a talent for it. Reflecting on Michael's campaigning in Cronulla, Tony pointed out how hard Michael worked for the Labor cause, door-knocking non-stop, and I also spoke to another local branch member and lifetime ALP member, Paddy, Bob Rogers, otherwise known as Paddy Rogers, who remembered Michael's commitment to the cause, driving around with a loudspeaker calling out, "Vote Labor," and pulling over to talk to people on the street during the campaigns. I will also finish with my most recent recollection, which was when we got inaugurated, the class of 2019, which was Latham, Buttigieg, Diadam, who else was there? Tara, of course. Tara. Emma Hurst, yep. And he was excellent. He came in and gave us the pep talk and what we should expect and what we should avoid. But the thing that stuck with me was and it's the greatest piece of advice I've had since I've come up here, and I always remember it, was that you will be able to get involved in a million things up here if you want to. My advice to you is, if you want to be effective, concentrate on a few things that, number one, interest you, and number two, you can be effective in, and focus all your energy on time on those, and you will find you will be more effective. And I found that advice to be very, very well given and hopefully well taken. A person who has no doubt left a great, great legacy for both the party, the Parliament, the people of New South Wales, a great treasurer, a good person who was prepared to stand up for what he believed in and was prepared to argue the toss, as I've said. My sincere, sincere condolences to you, Byron, family and friends. Vale, Michael Egan.